a crown tourney to... The crown is won by right of arms.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, if you look at most medieval things, it was held by sheer brute force, whether by armies or as your own skill by a fighter. You either could do it yourself or you got the best to do it for you. And that's what they go out there and do, with rules and regulations this time.
Well, what they do, too, is in order to be eligible to fight to be king or queen, and you could just as easily fight and win as the queen as you could as the king. We just had a princess in Drakenwald, which is the principality of Europe in its entirety right now, win by right of arms in the tournament. She became the princess because she was the best fighter.
And she was allowed to fight?
Absolutely.
The
only limitation on fighting is that they want you to be resident in the kingdom for a certain period of time so you know what you're getting into.
And you must be over 18.
Is that true to the Middle Ages? I mean, were the women allowed to fight back then?
Well, there's a few stories about it, but you generally had to either be very good to begin with or sneak in behind the lines and prove yourself first.
Okay. Good evening. You're on Open Line.
Hello. I was in Crandall Park last weekend, and it was marvelous, very colorful, very nice. But I had a question that no one could answer. What do the ladies get to do besides sew and cook and stand around? Do they get to do anything that's fun?
There were 3 women fighting in that crown tournament.
Really?
Yes, there were.
If you think that's fun.
I don't happen to want to get hit, but in fact, the current queen, that Duke Sir Morgan that you saw in that shot, eventually won the finals, what you saw with the semifinals. And the lady he was fighting for, Lady Mariah, was also fighting in that crown tourney. She was eliminated rather early on, but she fought.
Now, does she fight another woman? Or
no, you fight. It's the luck of the draw.
Okay. What about in archery? Do women get to compete in that? Was that traditionally, were women allowed to do that?
Traditionally, no, for the most part. This is the creative anachronists, because we wear glasses if we need to see, and we're not going to ban somebody from doing that. And we want the atmosphere, the chivalry and the romance of the Middle Ages, more than we want to exactly duplicate them. We want our toilets, it's often called chivalry with plumbing. We want our flu shots and our polio shots and things like that. And there aren't very many people who are going to stand by and exactly recreate it. If you go into a Revolutionary War group, you're pretty much relegated to the role of a camp follower. In the Society for Creative Anachronism, you can learn to fight, you could learn to make your own armor. I'm an archery marshal. Much as the marshals were manning the lines there, kind of refereeing. To be an archery marshal means you know the rules and regulations. You can inspect people's equipment to make sure it is safe, that the bow won't break, the arrows are safe. SCA archery, you cannot use compound bows or metal bows. You have to use long bows or recurves or crossbows. But there is nothing in the SCA that a woman cannot do. In fact, there have been plenty of times when the women have simply banded together and kicked the guys out of their side of the showers, because there have been more of us than there have been of them.
I'm beginning to like this group.
Are you going to give information at the end of the show, who to write to or who to call?
Yes, we will.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for your call.
And what holds for women also holds for girls, I mean, and children in general, as a lot of the things that are open to the society. The non-fighting archery, we have archers as young as 6 and 7 competing.
Ah, great. Good evening, you're on Open Line.
Hi, my name's Harold. I was just wondering if you had metallurgists or people that make swords, or do they make their own armor and everything like that?
Good question.
Yes, we do. We have people that both make swords and knives as close as they can to the same ways that things were made then. Damascus steel, if you've heard the term, or some of the different kinds of steel. They make their own chain mail, for instance. There are people that make full, elaborate suits of plate armor, just exactly like you see in the museums, and styled after the same styles, mostly from the museums or from the paintings.
That's great. Do you accept walk-ons, or does someone have to go through some sort of organization to get into your...
Walk-ons, like...
No, the only requirement is that you must be dressed in at least an attempt at garb. Again, we try to build an atmosphere for ourselves.
Right, exactly.
In fact, let me show you something. What I'm wearing would amount to what we might loan someone, which is just a simple tea tunic. Now, I'm wearing jeans under it because I did not have a chance to change tonight. But this is something that we have.
You look like a peasant
where
to
if
me.
somebody wanted to, well, a peasant or somebody working.
Okay.
Exactly. Not very fancy. This is considered to be a reasonable attempt for someone who's just getting into the society.
Great.
Yeah.
Is this something you might be interested in joining, Harold?
Well, right now I'm going in the armed forces. That's close as I can get to it.
Yeah. Basically, again, this is just another tea tunic. It's like cotton. I threw some embroidery on it, but we have these things as loaner garbs. What you'll find, though, is if you don't belong to the SCA, if you don't get a monthly listing of where the events are,
Right.
most of the time you won't be able to get, usually there's a meal that's served, a feast. In our case, we had a victory feast that, thanks to Christ Church United Methodists allowing us to use their hall and their kitchen, we could put out a victory feast for the new prince and princess. And that was closed. We had sold out. We could only do it for so many. The hall will only hold so many. And in those cases, everybody brings their own tablecloths. They have to supply their own dishes, which are all silver or pewter or wood, and you've got the goblets, and with all this laid out before you, it becomes quite a sight. And things like that, people just walking onto a site are not able to do because, as I said, most of the time, that's booked ahead of time, so you know how much you have to cook for.
I think this is a really great idea. I'm kind of a sword buff myself, and I'd love to get involved with maybe as an apprentice for someone that does make this equipment.
If you're going into the armed forces, wherever you end up being stationed, you might look into it. Almost the entire kingdom of Drachenwald in Europe now is made up of U.S. service people.
Oh, really?
Plus, we have several organizations which are basically on a particular base, Army, Air Force, whatever, within the country. In fact, at one point, we even had a shire which consisted of the aircraft carrier Nimitz.
Excellent.
They had enough people on the ship. Falconshire up in Plattsburgh is trying to revive. They've had a period where members have gotten transferred off the base, and that sort of put them into dormancy for a while. But there's a lot of military people who are in this.
Yeah, well, I can imagine that's where the personality may come from.
Yeah, a lot
All
of
right,
it.
thanks very much.
Thanks for your call. Okay. All righty, we're going to have to take another break now, and we'll be back with more Open Line and the Society for Creative Anachronism. Again, if you'd like to speak with them, feel free to call. The number is 798-8000. Be glad to answer your questions and take your calls, and we'll be back with more right after this.
For Master Chirlock to advance in combat, he must defeat Duke Sir Ronald twice. Duke Sir Ronald in the red and black is fighting with a sword and shield. He's fighting with a basket-hilt sword, and I don't believe he has a thrusting tip on the end of that weapon. Master Chirlock is fighting with a glaive, which is a polearm that has striking surfaces on both edges, so he can hit with the back or the front. The winner is determined by whoever will inflict what would have been a fatal blow on the other first. Since we are operating on an honor system and there are a number of marshals or judges watching to try and keep everyone honest, but in general it is all a question of honor system. A fatal blow would be a clean blow to the head or to the body. If either hits one in the arm or the leg, they will lose the use of that arm or leg. And Duke Sir Ronald has won. He remains undefeated. And that makes him a real good prospect for being in the finals. Since, again, in the finals, if whoever he is fighting is not undefeated, the person who is behind will have to win one extra bout in order to claim victory.
To fight for a place in the finals of Crown Tournament!
Duke Sir Morgan has one loss. Master Lucan is undefeated currently, so Morgan will have to beat Lucan twice. Lucan is in the black and green, Morgan is in the green and gold.
He's here. Lord! To honor the king!
The gentleman with the crown and the sword standing at the side is the current king, Randall. We change kings every 6 months. It keeps them from getting too uppity. The way it works is that if you win the tourney today, whoever wins this tourney will be prince for 6 months. At the end of that 6 months, they will be king for 6 months, and then they will step off the throne. And then they're certainly eligible to fight again and win again if they can. There's the king there, who is going to marshal the fight himself. The other gentleman marshalling is Master Farrell von Holstern, who is another warrior of great renown. The call of lay on, and the fight begins. This is a very well-matched fight. Both of these gentlemen have fought each other many times, and they both know each other's styles and skills. This fight also could be a very long fight. As you see, most of the blows that are being thrown so far are all being either blocked with the shield or the sword. In order to be counted, a blow has to come in cleanly. That is, it was not blocked on its way in by either sword or shield. I believe Master Lucan, in addition, has a thrusting tip on his weapon, which means that he can stab with it as well as throw blows. Both these gentlemen have been fighting for many years. It is a difficult sport, but because in the many years, the Society for Creative Anachronism is now 23 years old, and there has never been a serious injury. There have been a couple of people who have gotten themselves concussions, but the armor and safety standards are very high and are enforced strictly. That's when, in fact, the primary job of the marshals is to make sure that this is happening in a safe fashion and people don't get seriously hurt. There are people who in the society who do nothing but make weapons and armor. The objective is to look authentic and to have the right, within the boundaries of maintaining the safety factors, to have the right look and to have it be authentic and to have the weights and the feels of the weapons correct. The weapons are made of rattan, which is the same stuff that's used for furniture. The reason being that rattan is a very tough and fibrous wood. It does not break easily, and when it does break, it just comes apart in strands and doesn't leave any sharp edges or splinters. A typical sword that's used might last a few months in combat and would have to be replaced. The armor is real. The armor is as realistic as it can be made. The only thing that is different are the swords, and that's obviously for the reasons that we can't use real weapons here. We don't want people getting hurt.